Hi,
Hi,
recording. What is your name? What is your name?
now
Yes.
my name is Dov Dubno.
Were you born in Dubno?
I'm born in Dubno,
When and
this,
where?
this in Dubno, 1925, December 25, 25.
Where in Dubno were you born?
In Dubno, Surmice.
Did you live in Surmice?
Yes, I did till 1942.
Uh-huh. What was the name of your parents?
My parents, Volko and Zina Yerdin.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had one sister,
What was her name?
Manya Yerdin.
Uh-huh. And what did your parents do for a living?
My father worked with
Barley? Barley?
yes,
Cevada?
Nevada,
Uh-huh.
barley.
Mm-hmm. And did your mom work?
No, my mom didn't work.
Do you remember names of your friends from school?
Yes, some of them, yes, I do.
Tell us a little bit about your school, the name of the school.
Well, first of all, in the first 6 years, I was in the Powszechna is the name in Polish. This is the first 6 years at Surmice in a school.
Uh-huh.
It was a school of the majority are not Jews,
Uh-huh.
but maybe 20% or 25, yes.
Uh-huh. What was the name of the school?
Well, I remember, I know Powszechna.
Uh-huh. And do you remember the names of any of the kids that studied with you or teachers in the school?
Well, we had different teachers, but to remember a name is not easy. No.
Try to look into the camera.
But I remember the few friends I had there.
Uh-huh.
I had good friends. And Surmice in Dubno was a very big, a few battalions of Polish army. And I had a few friends, Polish friends, sons of different officers.
Uh-huh.
It was DAK. It means drugi, drugi artillery
Uh-huh. And
division.
what about the other school that you studied?
Well, after 6 years, when I was maybe 11 years old or 12 years,
Uh-huh.
I, I went, I went to in the Kupiecki Gymnasium. The number was, my number was 251H.
Uh-huh.
It means handlówka,
Uh-huh.
Polish, a commercial school. Gimnazjum Kupieckie, Polish.
Do you remember the names of any of your classmates?
Uh,
Sioma and other ones?
if I had, yes, a few friends. One of them was Shema Bogdanov, Yankil Bobrov, what else? Belfer. Um, oh, I can't remember all the names.
Well, can you describe Dubno as you remember it?
Well,
Tenta olhar para cá, pai. Olha para a câmera, olha aqui.
What did you ask?
If you can you describe Dubno as you remember it?
Yes, not so much. I have well, don't forget, it's about 75 years ago. And it was a small town of about 20, between 20 and 25,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Maybe one third to 40% of them were Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Dubno had about, let's say, 60,000 people, Jews,
Uh-huh.
or more, maybe more than this.
Mm-hmm. How many do you think survived?
What I know, maybe a dozen, or maybe more of this, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just let me think. Yeah, maybe more, maybe. But I knew, let's say, when I came home, between 30 and 40 people.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the synagogue that you went to?
Well, in Surimica, we had a small synagogue near the Ikva. And my father used to take me to the synagogue every Saturday.
Uh-huh.
I remember the synagogue, it was near the Equator. Yes. I
Uh-huh.
used to go with my father to take the talit
Uh-huh.
to the synagogue. What I
Mm-hmm.
remember.
Did you belong to a youth movement?
Yes, I have been in the Beitar.
Shh.
In the Beitar,
Uh-huh.
the head of the Beitar was Ashkenazi. He was owner of a pharmacy in
Uh-huh.
Dubno,
Uh-huh.
and we had different appointments and different, well, how do you say, different
Meetings.
meetings, and it was a good organization.
Uh-huh.
And I remember we had the brown uniform.
Uh-huh.
That's what I remember.
What year did you leave Dubno?
When,
When did you
when
leave?
well, 1941 started the war, and I remember that the Germans came in. It was in June.
Uh-huh.
By number one, I can remember when Poland was split between the Germans and the
Russia.
Russians, the Soviet Union. Um, it was in September, I think, 1939, when Ribbentrop made a deal with Molotov, and they split Poland between two sides, the Ukrainian side and the Polish side. And then we went, our school, the Kubiecka, became to speak Ukrainian and Russian.
Uh-huh.
And we were used to these languages because till, okay,
And so you left Dubno when? When the Germans came in?
no, we went 41. We knew already what happened in West Poland with the Jews, more or less, not everything. And we didn't believe so much because we didn't want to believe that such things
Could happen.
could happen. But many people in 41, when the Germans came, many people left Dubno to Russia,
Uh-huh.
to the east of Ukraine. But my father didn't leave because I think I had to speak about the Russians when they came 1939. So I went to the school, as I said, and And my father used to, because he had numbers, number 11, passport number 11, it means he was a bourgeois. A bourgeois means a bourgeois. But we were middle class people. And my father was against the Soviet regime because of this, and we didn't want many people left Dubno to the Soviet Union, but we stayed when the Germans came.
Uh-huh.
So when the Germans came, we stayed till 1942. The first months of 42, we stayed in our house. Many Jews were, not many, but let's say a few hundred Jews, what we heard, were killed. They took them in the streets and so, and they killed them outside of the city. And 1942, all the people had to go to the ghetto. The ghetto was from the other side of the Rio Iqua, and it means they split the ghetto into different parts. One part were Jews. They didn't have any profession.
They didn't have profession.
No profession. And one part was a part of the professional. They had carpenters and shoemakers, and so we didn't understand why. So they split the ghetto in two parts. After a few months, winter came. Before winter, they sent a few people to the forest.
Mm-hmm. To cut wood.
And that was me, my father, and a few more people.
To do what?
To the forest to cut wood for the Deutsche Gebietskommissariat. And then we heard that the part of the non-professional, 3,000 people, between them, 3,000 something people, between 32 people of my family, and between the 3,000 Jews, they took to the airport via Strumice, about, let's say, 4 or 5 kilometers from my house, to the airport, and they shoot 3,000 people. May 27, 1942. So in the other half of the ghetto, they left the people still working for them. And when we went to the forest, my father knew different people, let's say different people were Czechs, and so they helped us for a few weeks to give food and so. And then we had to leave them and to look for the most important thing. We knew that the Ukrainians were against us. They were worse than the Germans because they knew all the forests. The Germans were afraid to go to the forests, but the Ukrainians helped them. And so we have to look, and every day, every week, we had more people, between men, women, and children. And then we organized.
As a partisan group.
a group, but we didn't. The most important thing, we didn't have equipments. I mean,
And food.
tools. We didn't have the tools how to defend ourselves. But then we started with uh, people. They worked in the forest, and we took from them the rifles by by by
Force.
by force, and so started the small organization of the resistance. We had to assault different attack or assault different Ukrainian um, houses to
To attack,
for
steal.
food,
Yeah, you have to steal food.
and so and we did it. In the meantime, we became between 70 and 80 people between different ages.
Do you know what area you were in?
We were more or less in the east of Dubno, between 80 and 100 kilometers east of Dubno, and we were near the name of the. Well, we had to change every 24 hours our
Camp.
Our camp, because we were afraid that the Ukrainians are going to know where we are, so we had to change. And our biggest problem were tools. I mean, equipment to defend ourselves, and later to attack them. Weapons. What I'm talking is about weapons. Okay. Absolutely. And as a young.
What about food?
Well, we had to find food. We potatoes. We had to steal from the Ukrainian. Mm-hmm. We didn't have another choice. This was the two most important things: are food and weapons. If we would have weapons at this time, we would be much more safer. Mm-hmm. Because we were afraid of the Ukrainians, because they were killing Jews exactly as the Germans, mm-hmm. or maybe more. So we had to defend ourselves, and this was the most important thing: food and equipment.
And what about the weather? You were sleeping in the forest?
Well, I was sleeping in the forest. The weather, I was there at this time maybe 16 years old, 16 years old. And I remember I slept in the snow, and I never became sick.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And what about the other people around you?
The other people, the same thing, more or less.
Were they about your age, or did you have older people and
younger older people and younger people and children also.
Yeah, small children?
Small children, sure. For 5 years, 7 years. I was witnessing when a husband has to kill his wife because she was wounded and we didn't have any
means to you didn't have
recetas. Medicines, nothing. Uh-huh. And she was wounded, and
so he had
to kill her, and vice versa. That one husband killed his wife because she was wounded, mm-hmm. and she couldn't move. He had to kill her because we had to move every 24 hours to another place, not to be discovered. This was the start of the organization. In the meantime, we started to be more aggressive, and we attacked different police stations, Ukrainian police stations, where we were taking the weapons of them
Mm-hmm.
and killing them, and we became a much more uh,
Aggressive group.
aggressive group.
Mm-hmm.
One more aggressive and
Strong.
more promise as a group, as a small group, and we became till behind 120 people, and we had a few people. Well, I was young, but I had enough courage, and I didn't know the difference between death and to be alive. So I wasn't afraid of anything, and
Who was the
then
leader of your group?
well, we were different leaders.
Uh-huh.
I, as a small guy, maybe 17 years old, I was respected because I let's say the food had to be divided between everybody. And there were a few people they didn't respect this, and I was very furious and dangerous. The people were afraid of me. Then we had what I remember a few people, two brothers of them was Rachmil and Ruben Belfer.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Mui Shkulnik. I remember Bobrov.
Mm-hmm.
What was his name? I don't remember his name. I think Jakob Bobrov.
Mm-hmm.
And we did, and a few other people, we did this, let's say, we started resistance.
Mm-hmm. Did you have contact with other resistance groups?
No, we only heard because it's the same thing as let's say, as the brothers Bielski was in meat, meat
Mm-hmm.
for us, meat.
Uh-huh.
We have heard about the brothers Bielski in Belarus. It was north of Ukraine,
Uh-huh.
and it was a big group. We, but we didn't have this many people from other different small cities
They joined
and
you.
big cities that joined us,
Uh-huh.
and
So
it
it
became
wasn't
bigger and
mostly
bigger.
it wasn't mostly people from Dubno. It was
No, different people. Well, most of them were from Dubno, but also from Lutsk and from Rovno and
mm-hmm.
from what's the name, Kovno, and so all those people.
Was
Yeah.
Sioma in your group?
The name of the group?
Sioma. Was Sioma?
Sioma Wolman was in my group, yes.
And also
Belfer.
Sadovnik.
Moin Sadovnik was not in my group. Moin Sadovnik went to Russia.
Uh-huh.
Flight from Dubno to Russia.
Uh-huh. And Belfer?
Belfer was in my group.
What was his first name?
Ruben Belfer.
Okay.
Had a library in Tel Aviv.
So I know that eventually you joined the Russian army. When did you join?
Just a moment. We were in this. We started to when we, as I said before, our biggest problem were weapons and food and
Injections?
not injections.
Vaccines?
Remedios.
Medication.
Medication. This was the biggest, and this we had to attack different things.
Uh-huh.
We started to attack the Germans, not in the cities, but in the small villages. We knew, let's say, that in other villages are a few Germans, or 10 or 20 Germans. We attacked them. And the most important thing was we had to kill them and to take the weapons. Then we became stronger and stronger, always stronger. Also machine guns and different weapons they have had, and we have to take it. And this all was, and we became stronger and stronger.
Was your father? Your father was the
my
only
father was with
person
me.
from
He
your
was
family?
yes, he was wounded, but I saved his life. He fall from a kamienie.
From a truck?
No, for stones.
So he fell?
Yes, and so he had to be in the. But I saved his life. We saved his life, and but my father, well, he didn't do this work what we did. They didn't have the older people didn't have this cars. We had young people, and we started to. Then we had dynamite. I say dynamite. Dynamite, and we started to dynamite the German railroad.
So yes. You would blow up the
We blow up a few times, maybe every week, one. And with success, we killed many of them were killed, and the weapons they used to take to the Russian army. And the food and so the supply to the Russian,
German army that was
to the German army would attack Russia, and we were this we did for more than a year and a half. Then we had a contact, the first contact with the Russian partisans. The Russian partisans. People, many Russian soldiers, they were prisoners of the Germans, and a few of them escaped, and so they started, and then they became help from the Soviet army by parachutes, by parachutes, and we joined them. So at this time we were together maybe between 2,000 and 3,000 people together with them. This was more or less in 43, and then then we were very successful because we were with them together, and we had a very good relationship. There was a big discipline. And the name of the commander, his name was General Kolpakov. And we had very good relationship between Jews, and they were better equipped with medicines and everything. And we did much work against the German army, against the German, supply line for the exactly.
So you disturbed their
we disturbed the supply.
You disrupted, yeah.
Many of them. Then in 1943, after Stalingrad, when they had this
when they were
defeated, they were defeated in Stalingrad. We knew all more or less what's going on, and the Germans started to retreat from, and then we started to attack them, and they were when I first saw them, the Germans, I was thinking that impossible to kill the German. They were the heroes, but when they left Russia, they were very, very. I was ashamed to see them cowards.
So.
And then In 1943, we
Joined?
joined the Russian army,
Uh-huh.
the regular Russian Soviet army.
So this is the men. What about the women and children?
My children stayed there, and my father stayed also with his older people.
Where did they stay?
Well, in different places there because we went to the Soviet to the partisans
Mm-hmm.
to Kolpakov,
Mm-hmm.
and they stayed in the different uh, uh, Czech villages and Polish villages, and we went to the army.
Mm-hmm.
And this time I had uh, so much practice as the Russian soldiers and so and so. And people are saying that the Russians were killing the Jews. It's not. I never heard about this. People say so much things, but I didn't see this.
Mm-hmm. So they
Because
treated. Did they treat the Jewish soldiers
the
the
same
same?
the same as all of them. Yes.
Mm-hmm. How long were you in the army?
How
Until when were you in the Russian army?
well they sent me to a, they call it Zapasnoy Polk. It means to as all the soldiers we had
The
to
training?
train, and then they send us to the Belaruski front. It means in the Belarusia, and we went to Borisov and Borisov, Orsha, till Lithuania. We came to Lithuania and we attacked the Germans, and they had to retreat, and we came till the Prussia, the German Prussia,
Mm-hmm.
and they at this time was very difficult. I remember many things. Not going to speak now about details.
And you were wounded, right?
I was wounded in the leg. It was a Dum bullet.
Where were you wounded?
At the front, at the
On my leg. Your leg.
yes, and what was the name?
Belarus?
And no, but at the frontier between
At the border.
Belarusia and Ost Prussia, where we were the first, the third army, the third Russian army. From his name was General. What was his name?
Doesn't matter.
We were the first army to retreat to enter to the German territory, and then I was wounded because it was a very big resistance. They sent SS soldiers to defend their country because we were the first let's say division
that entered
into Germany. Then they sent me then to the yes. What I have to say when I was a day or 2 days lying and I couldn't go, they took me away. Came Russian Red Cross, the Soviet Red Cross, and they took me away to not a hospital, but to
an army hospital.
Army hospital in the forest there near the frontier.
They treated you.
And I remember I had there were many soldiers wounded when I came. It was my tour to and it was a Russian officer, a doctor, and I think it was a Jewish woman, Russian Jewish woman. And I remember I heard he said, let's cut him the leg because many people are waiting. Many soldiers are wounded. And when she heard my name, I think she understood that I'm a Jew. And she said, let's try to keep it, to save the leg. In the morning, when I waked up, I saw that the leg is here with me.
So she performed
I'm
surgery
sure about that.
she
Saved my leg. So then they sent me to
School of Officers. Officer school.
No, they sent me to the hospital. I was a few months in the hospital, and then they sent me back to the front.
Wow.
And I was wounded then in the ear, a small wound. Then I went back to the hospital, and then and I was and I remember the name of the hospital. It was in Kulebaki, near Muram, Gorky.
In Russia?
Then, in June 45, the war was over. And I was a sergeant. Then they sent me to a school of officers in Kimry, between Moscow and Gorky, for 3 months, and I became lieutenant. And then I was thinking about my father because I was hoping that my father is alive.
How old were you?
This time it was 45, 19 years. So I asked for permission, and they gave me the permission. And I went by train to Dubno, and I discovered that my father is alive, and he was working in the Dubinskaya Pravda, means it's a journal. He was working as
newspaper.
Yes, newspaper, and he was married for the second time. What else do you want to know?
How long did you stay in Dubno when you came back?
In Dubno, when I came back, a few months.
Did you have any friends there?
Yes, I had 2 good friends. One of them was a lieutenant without
his arm.
Without the arm. His name was Dimka. Vadim. And the other was with one leg. He was from Radzieville. Yefim. I don't remember the names, but it's only the names, not the sure names. And we became friends, and so I had a few friends, and my father was there. And then we were thinking, at this time, we were hearing that many people, Jewish people, are living via Poland to Germany. And
to Israel.
And to Israel, to somewhere place, because nobody wanted to stay with the Soviet regime.
So you went to Israel.
I went to first to Poland, then Germany. I was in Germany in a DP, the joint. The American joints would help a few thousand people there.
You were in the DP camp?
Yes. DP camps means the displaced person camp. And then I went to Italy. In Italy, I had to see how can I do something to make a living. And because as a DP split person, I couldn't work. It was prohibited to work. I had to go every 2 months, 3 months to the police and to well, all this is, and then I made some money.
And you went to Israel.
And in 1949, I came to Israel. Somebody gave me a letter, and I delivered his letter, and I met my wife. And I saw her. It was the first time I saw her. It was my first love and the last love.
Her name?
Then I took her away back.
Her name? Tell us
her name. Her name was Sipora. She came from Yaldei, Tehran. She was maybe 12 years old when she came to ex-Palestine. I met her. She was in the Beit Sirot Mizrahi. And I took her away to Milan. I married her. And in the 50th, we left to Brazil. I'm in Brazil for 65 years, more or less. And
what did you do in Brazil after
in Brazil,
you came here?
Well, in Milan, I made a night school for technicians, textile technicians. And when I came to Brazil, I started with a small textile factory. And I became successful, and then I always I liked to do something and to work. And but I remember I made in Brazil about between 6 and 8 factories, not small, big factories.
How many people did you employ?
I remember I came to maximum 5,300 people all together with all the factories. And I made different joint ventures, one with the Dutch group, one with the American group, and we became big.
And how old are you now?
I'm now 92.
Are you retired?
No, I'm still working. If I would be retired, I would. My head would. No, I'm still working. Still doing something.
What are you doing now?
Now, well, I have a farm, cattle. I make different constructions outside of São Paulo. And I'm an owner of land.
Real estate.
Yes, and I'm making different
real estate
development.
Mm-hmm. And what else did you build and you own? Shopping.
Okay.
You own a shopping center.
Yes, I own a shopping center.
So you're the success story that came out of Dubno.
Yes. And I'm doing many things for Israel. I've been many times in Israel.
And
I'm doing many things for Israel.
Many things for Brazil.
I had many people in my house from the government, as Sapir, Pinkas Sapir was my friend. During the 6 Days War, he was in my house. Moshe Sharet, Burg, Yosef Nachmias, Chich, he was the mayor of Tel Aviv, a very good friend of mine. And maybe the other names I forgot already, but I had many people, German, German, Tzvi German.
Mm-hmm.
He was a colonel. Arie Brosh were 10 years in São Paulo as a shliach, very good friend. And What else can I tell you in a few minutes? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Vamos ver, huir agora.